after a Super Bowl that was light on running. Who are the top 5 running backs in this class? Crock and I go head-to-head on that topic right now today on Locked On NFL Draft.
You are Locked On NFL Draft, your daily podcast covering the NFL Draft. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to another episode of the Locked On NFL Draft Show. I'm your host, former NFL and NFL defensive back, Eric Crocker. And of course, I'm joined by my guy, Ryan Tracy from Rogue Analytics. And
hey.
I want to thank you for making us your first listen of the day. As the draft season kind of continues on, we're jumping into some of our top 5s. Again, these are our top 5s based on kind of what we've seen from these guys so far. A little bit sample size of all 22 that we've had access to this point. And we'll continue to dive into these guys as the draft season continues on, as combine happens, pro day happens, all those good things. But we formed our top 5 running backs. All right. And I'm excited about this one because I think my list might be a little different than yours. And just disclaimer, as we've talked about before, Ryan and I, we do not discuss our top 5 guys before we jump on with each other. So we're getting straight into it, and I'm getting straight to doing what I do best, and that's put Ryan on the spot. So Ryan, you're number 1 running back in this class.
I thought you were going to take the lead on this one. I thought you were going for it. All right, fine. Just because I like all the things that he does, I think that he can walk into an offense and be a contributor right away. I have Kenneth Walker at the top of my list. I like what he showed in a number of different ways. I don't think there's anything really drastic lacking in what I've seen to this point. And I think there's a special like home run ability that I think is there all the time. And that's what I'm looking for.
That's nice. So you're a little higher on him than I am right now. And I'll get more into kind of my thoughts on Kenneth Walker. But again, terrific prospect. I mean, he put up amazing numbers this year. You know, he's running in the Big 10, excuse me. 10. He's running in the Big 10 for Michigan State. And anybody that's running for the Big 10 and has that type of success, you know he's somebody who can carry the rock. And he's a physical specimen. He has the body type that I think the NFL teams are going to be looking for and all that type of stuff. I'm not as high on him as Ryan, so I don't want to give away some of my worries I have with him, but I do like him being in the 1 pick. Now, I think y'all will see a trend with where I head with my running backs. And one thing that I'm really big on, and my number 1 running back in this class, he definitely has, and that's Isaiah Spiller out of Texas A&M. You know, obviously, if you guys put on the film, he's number 28. All right, number 28. And things that really jumped out immediately. You know, I was watching this film, and I was like, wow, his eyes and his feet are connected when he runs. Meaning, whatever he's seeing, he's able to kind of make moves off of that and tie his movements with what he's seeing and hit holes and bounce out of there. And really everything working together in unison. It reminds me of like a sweet cornerback that just, when he sees it, and he's able to like flip his hips and change direction and put his foot in the ground and get back and drive on the ball and break it up. And you're like, wow, everything that he was visualizing there worked together and he was able to make a play. Well, that's something I see with Isaiah Spiller consistently, just the explosiveness, the ability to run away from guys. I don't think, at least at the top so far from what I've seen, there's not that pure like 4.3 blazer or maybe even like super low 4.4 type guy. But there are a couple guys that can run away from guys. And I think Isaiah Spiller, he showed that. Now, questions that people will have, I think the pass catching aspect of it, I think he's a solid pass catcher. Maybe not, quote unquote, a difference maker in that part of his game, but or something that you're going to like rely on in the pass game or utilize. Maybe if he's leaking out, you'll do things to get the ball in his hands because he is really good in the open field. But I don't know if he's a guy that they're just going to be like, you know what? I can count on you to beat this guy one-on-one every time. That might not be his game. Again, at the NFL level, he might be asked to do more of that, and we'll see how he kind of progresses from that standpoint. But dynamic mover, feet were good. He can catch. I really like his ability kind of like working his jump cuts, getting in and out of his cuts and exploding out of there and being able to get around the corner. Thought that was really good. Again, it shows some explosiveness. Is he again, that 4.3, low 4.4 type guy, I'm not sure about that. And I'm not sure that guy even exists in this class. But I do think that what I saw from him was enough to say right now, he's definitely my RB1.
So with Kenneth Walker from Michigan State, Big Ten, Spiller at Texas A&M, SEC at this point, I think the level of competition stands out not just because of the quality of play that the defenses are running at them, but the way that they play them too. Because the difference for me is that I feel like Spiller's a little bit quicker and, like you said, more decisive inside the tackle box. But I feel like there's more unique ways that Walker can either get to the edge, attack downhill, has a little bit more punch when he actually makes contact. Once he's outside the edge, I think Spiller's actually going to be faster. I could be wrong, but I think it's a unique pair with those two guys at the top of your list.
Yeah, definitely. And we're going to get into more guys. All right, we just knocked out our first guys, our RB1s. We're going to get into in the next little segment our RB2, 3s, and then in the last segment our 4th and 5th. But first, we want to talk to you a little bit about BetOnline. All right, football season's over. The Rams are Super Bowl champions. It hurts me to say that. It pains me to say that. Somebody covers the 49ers, loves the 49ers, but the season is over and there's still basketball in full steam right now, both pro and college hoops. And BetOnline, they have you covered for all that. From all the latest odds, the totals, player performance props, to where you can, find who's going to be the next fire coach. You can bet on that as well. BetOnline.net is the number one spot for all of your sports betting needs. BetOnline remains the best spot for all of your sports scores, podcasts, news this season. And it's not just basketball. I know we talked about the college basketball, the NBA in the season, but no, it's not just basketball. I mean, they got hockey, boxing, UFC odds, right to the Olympic coverage and information on all that stuff. So head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more about the trends and actions. All right, BetOnline, where the game starts. All right, so since I put you on the spot for the RB1s, I will start off with my RB2. And
let me interrupt you because my 2 is your 1. We've already covered Spiller. So
okay, so go ahead, jump in there and just some of your thoughts on Spiller.
Yeah, no, a lot of what you said too. I think he has a little bit more upside in the pass game. I think that I've seen enough to make me think that he can be more effective than we've seen to this point. In terms of the pass catching and what he's able to do to a defense.
Hey, hold on real quick. And when you say to this point, I mean, we're just talking about from a production standpoint. It wasn't like they made a cautious effort like week in and week out to just get the ball in his hands like another running back who I'll talk about shortly. But we feel like he's just kind of scratching the surface in the sense of how productive he can be as a running back with the ability and dynamic ability and the feet and the hands and all those things that he possesses.
I was just about to say that exact thing. I think he may actually progress to the point where he's better, especially with the pass catching aspect at the pros than he was in college because of a lack of dedicated emphasis to get him the ball that way. So I'm glad that our top 2 were right there the same. We just kind of flipped them a little bit, and that's okay.
Now, okay, so real quick, we talked about our top 2 guys. Where do you see these guys potentially being drafted? Because I think that's going to be the big question mark just around the NFL, the draft. That's what the conversation is going to be. Where do you take running backs in this day and age? We saw 2 go first round last season, but they weren't even the most productive. As a matter of fact, I mean, one didn't even get to really play out of Travis Etienne out of Clemson. He tore his ACL. You had Najee Harris, who had a terrific rookie season, but I mean, one of the most productive running backs in this class was Elijah Mitchell, running back for the 49ers, who was a 6th round draft pick. So do you think that the teams might start to kind of, I don't want to say devalue the position because we've already kind of seen that from a conversation standpoint, but maybe say, you know what, none of these guys are worthy of being a 1st round pick?
Every year I think that because for me, I don't think anything in this class, there's so much, I think, good quality depth that you can get starters out of. A lot of people are saying 15. I'll say, the top 10 are always the top 10. So 10 to 40, 45. I think there's great value there. I wouldn't consider running back till after that. Maybe they fall outside the top 50. But every year I say that because that's my general philosophy as well. There are a couple of teams that say, no, that's the guy. He's available. He's the top of our board now. We're going to take him. And it ends up happening. So I don't know. For me, it'd be 50 plus. What about you?
Yeah, and I'm in that same boat, definitely 50 plus. And I think a lot of people start there, right? With top 50 players, I'm not so sure if a running back will be in there. And it's not because they lack the ability, but just something that we're not seeing as much. People just value the running back position. A guy who I do value, and he is my RB2, is Breece Hall out of Iowa State. I was watching Breece Hall, and I just saw man, for somebody that is I don't want to say he's like a thicker running back, but he has some solid size to him. I think he moves extremely well. I think, I talked about Isaiah Spiller and his ability to kind of work his jump cuts. I think he does that very well. Talking about Breece Hall. Another thing, and I don't know if it's just a college football thing, but I feel like these offenses aren't really prioritizing the running backs in the passing game as much, except for this one running back I will get to shortly. But, I think he's another guy who can be utilized in that way. I like the way that he's able to make moves on top of moves, especially for his size, right? Being able to, and what I mean by that is be able to give a guy something, make him miss, and then immediately give the next guy something. And I think at the NFL level, unless you're Derrick Henry, who's just bigger than everybody and somehow is faster than everybody when he has the ball in his hands, you're going to need to make guys miss in a phone booth. And I think, watching Breece Hall, I think he does that extremely well. So that's my RB2. I talked about maybe not having that 4-3 type running back, but he's another guy who, regardless of whatever his speed is, he's still able to break off big runs. And I value that big time with my running back. So there are some guys that I really like Haskins. I love the way he ran the ball. Brian Robinson out of Alabama, I like the way he runs the ball. But they don't really give me that game-breaking ability. I think guys like Isaiah Spiller and Breece Hall, my RB1 and RB2, I think they definitely do.
Well, I think you said about everything that I need to say about Breece Hall because he's my number 3. So we're eye to eye on that. But I want to go back to, because the big thing for you is not since Kareem Hunt have I seen a guy that I think I can hand the ball to, and with a solid offensive line, he can get to the point where he can hurt a defender and put his shoulder down and go through him. And I don't think there's enough of that in this league right now. The majority of light boxes coming more and more and more often. I want to get to the guy to the edge, and I want to make it hard to bring him down. That's the kind of style that I'm looking for as a complement to all the wide open spread formations and throwing the ball over the yard, right? So I really like his ability to be that bulkier, a guy that they have to account for, and maybe that helps you draw down and get more guys in the box and keep your pass game open.
Yeah, one thing I didn't do is talk about just how productive Breece Hall was. And I talked about his size. He's listed at 6'1", 220 pounds. So one of a thicker guy who is able to run away from guys. I think, that's something that the NFL is definitely going to be intrigued by. But, almost 1,500 yards rushing this year, or over 1,500 yards rushing last season. I mean, his yards per touch as a running back carrying the ball, almost around 6. I mean, he's had 41 rushing touchdowns in the last 2 years and another 5 receiving touchdowns to go with that. 36 receptions on the season this past year. So, man, just really a dynamic running back. And I'm not so sure this is a guy, the more I watch on him, won't be maybe my RB1 because there's a lot to like. Spiller, he's kind of been there this entire year. I can't get out of my mind the performance he had against Florida last year, 2020 season. I thought he was just took over the game, how well he ran. But I think Breece Hall, he's someone eventually, the more film I watch on him, could potentially unseat my guy Spiller as my RB1.
I'll tell you too, Hall has produced the most forced missed tackles. So that is something that I think at the end of the day, whether you're cutting out of the way or you're being physical, if you're defeating tacklers, that's what it comes down to at this position.
All right. Now, this is where we're going to differ a little bit. And I'm not even sure if you have this guy in your top 5, but Kyron Williams out of Notre Dame.
Really where do you have him?
I have him at RB3.
I have him at RB4.
Oh, man. Okay, so we're closer on this than I thought we would be. All right, but so I'll get to Kyron Williams, and then when we come back from break, you'll get to talk about some of the things that you like about him. But, I mean, it was interesting watching Kyron Williams, just the way that he runs. I think the one thing that is something that I guess some of the other guys don't really have, just that return ability. They used him as a punt returner. He did have a few kickoff returns. I thought that was something that was really cool to see. And, 14 punt returns this last season. You don't really see that a whole lot from teams RB1s, but 151 yards on 14 returns, had the longest of 47 yards. That's pretty good. Somebody who adds that special teams aspect. All right. 1,000-yard rusher hovering around 5 yards per carry. I thought that was terrific as well. Some of the notes that I took on him real quick. Let me find them. Here they go. Can make guys miss in the phone booth. All right. So basically, he doesn't need a whole lot of space to be able to make guys miss. Now, he's not as explosive out of his cuts as maybe a Spiller or Breece Hall, but he's crafty enough. And I think he does a really good job of, working his blockers and setting them up to be able to pick up more yards. I thought he was extremely patient. Thought he ran hard and finished off runs extremely well and had really good contact balance. His start-stop, I thought, was pretty good with his ability to really be patient, get in his cut up field, pick up some yards that maybe weren't there to begin with. And then I think he finishes his runs extremely well. So that was a guy who I thought I might have been higher on him than you, but I'm glad to see that we're kind of in the same boat there with how we feel about him. We will get your opinion on him on the other side of this break. But first, we want to talk to you a little bit about Rock Auto. All right. With the ever-increasing numbers of makes and models, and now it's impossible for your local chain auto parts store to stock all the parts you need. Why endure often pointless or seemingly intimidating questioning? All right, about your vehicle. I got a Dodge Charger with a Hemi. All right, people always asking me questions about that. But, when I go in to get a part, I don't want to have to wait for a person that's behind a counter that's going to type in the things in their computer and then say, hey, I'm gonna find this brand for you, but it's the only brand that they happen to carry in their warehouse. No, I'm not going to do that, especially when you have a computer with access to rockauto.com at home or in your pocket with your smartphone. All right, save time and money when you use Rock Auto. All right, why choose to spend 30, 50 to 100% more for the same parts from a chain store or a car dealership? Rock Auto is a family business serving do-it-yourselfers for over 20 years. All right, that's more than half of my life. Rock Auto prices are reliably low for every customer. So even if you're on a budget, which in my mind, I'm always on a budget, they are the perfect people for guys like me. And they have everything that you can need: brake parts, tail lamps, motor oil, and even new carpet. One thing I want to see is do they have the caliper covers? Because I want some for my for my vehicle. All right. One thing I need y'all to do is go to rockauto.com, see if they have the caliper covers for me, or if you need some of those, you can check that out as well. rockauto.com right now and see all the parts that they have available for your car or your truck. And when they ask about, hey, how did you hear about us? Make sure you write in Locked On. All right. Let them know that we sent you. They have amazingly selection, reliably low prices, all the parts your car will ever need. rockauto.com. So we know who your RB4 is. And again, I didn't think that he would be on your radar. I know I'm going to get you with my RB5. All right, but talk to us a little bit about your RB4.
My big thing with Kyren Williams is that I think going back to the playoff game a year ago, like I thought he showed a lot of grit and be able to do a little bit of everything. You can put him into situations, running the ball, catching the ball, pass protecting, doing everything that you need him to do. Is he super elite at anything? No. Do I wish he was a little faster? Yeah. I'll be interested to see what his timing comes out at testing, but he's got enough. And I think in today's league, I don't think the Derrick Henrys of the world where you can have a bell cow, and Najee, maybe it's just Alabama running backs that are going to be the bell cows going for it. I don't know. But I don't think that's the norm. And I don't think that's the way most teams are going to build it. So I'm comfortable the fact that he's a little bit smaller. I think he's well built for his lack of height doesn't bother me. And the fact that he's good in the pass game in a number of different ways that I don't know, as a rookie, I'm going to put him in there to protect Mahomes' backside, but I think he'll get there pretty quickly. And I feel like he's got enough in the past game. They've even split him out sometimes. So I think that's a nice matchup piece that you can move out to the slot or maybe even outside, get him the ball in a little bit of space and see what he can do, because I think there's some upside there as well. So for me, it's being able to invest a mid-round pick, in my opinion, third round, something like that, maybe even a touch lower, depending on the way the draft falls, and still get good usefulness in a number of different ways. So that's what I like about him most.
Definitely. And again, I talked about the special teams aspect, and that's something that teams that, hey, we got an RB1 already, but we want to draft this guy at some point, day 3. This is a guy who, okay, not just a guy who you put back there at the running back position, but he can also be back for returns. And I think that's very valuable to a lot of these teams. My RB4, and I said I was going to surprise you with my RB5, but it's actually my RB4.
Okay.
James Cook out of Georgia. Do you got James Cook in your top 5?
Oh, I want to. I really want to. I like
Yeah.
that home run aspect, but no, you beat me.
Yeah. So James Cook, he's going to be intriguing because he's not very big. And obviously, brother Dalvin Cook was a former second round pick to the Minnesota Vikings, and we know how well he's done in the NFL when healthy. All right, but James Cook, he's definitely not. He doesn't have like the size that his brother has, and maybe if he did, he'd be viewed a little different. Probably not just to us, but maybe even to Georgia, right? If he was like, say, he was about 210 pounds.
Sure.
You know, how much more would they done with him? But he's listed at around 5'11", 190 pounds. And he looks about 5'9", 188 pounds, right? He's not very big. But when you just watch him and how he runs, he was their home run threat. Whether it was in a running game, whether it was in a passing game, he was extremely explosive and made the most of every opportunity, every carry that he had. He was much more dynamic than their other running back that some people might have over him. I don't.
Yeah,
I don't. I think
might be on a lot of boards that are higher, right?
Yeah, I mean, I like that dynamic running back, and if you kind of look at a lot of my lists so far, I lean more towards that, and I think he brings that. I think out of the guys so far, he's the one that's utilized more in the pass game, even downfield. And if you look at how they utilize him, not just in the passing game, but in the running game as well, they did a lot of different things with him. They put him in motion a ton, and they would fake it to their back, or they hand off to him on the jet sweeps. If you're a shotgun, he'd be back there and he'd make guys miss. Sprung out some big runs against Alabama, not just in the run game, but also in the passing game as well, being able to catch the ball downfield. He just brings a different dynamicness that I really like. And it's tough. It's tough having him over some of these other guys that might be more pro ready from their body standpoint, but just from an ability standpoint, you might look at a guy. I'm not saying he's this guy, but like a Darren Sproles, who he was much shorter, but he was like super rocked up. But how did the teams utilize him? More of a third down back, more of a guy that they wanted to continue to get in space, and he'd take all those little pitter-patter steps and run away from defenders. They also use him in the return game. I think that James Cook can do a lot of that as well. He's a guy who I think he just brings kind of the total package of more of a terrific change of pace back that's going to bring a different dynamic than whatever your RB1 is. So he may be a guy that goes at some point day 3, especially if he runs well. NFL team might not be as high, but I think from a value standpoint, they might have him extremely high.
Yeah, you may very well be right. I'll be interested to see where the two of them go. And it really is about what do you want to rely on? Because my 5th guy is about reliance too. And I'm building a committee. I'm not looking for a one back that does it all, like we've said about some of the other guys. So my number 5 might surprise you. I don't know, but it's Robinson from Alabama. I want to hurt somebody. I'm here to make sure that they feel that game at the end. And so, yes, he's got a ways to go. Is he super explosive? No, but he's got enough to get the job done in the era, I think, specifically of guys like Nick Chubb, who I feel is the best all-around back in the NFL. I don't see why Brian Robinson can't continue the trend of Alabama running backs getting in there and actually making noise in the NFL.
Yeah, well, obviously, that's a guy who I've been really high on. I think he's kind of one of my snubs. He's a guy who I've been really intrigued with how he runs, because when you look at him, he just looks like an NFL running back. Like, just looking at him, his body, his physicality. We got a chance to watch him at the Senior Bowl and watch him run live. And I thought at the Senior Bowl, he showed a little bit more wiggle than I was anticipating. So I thought that was one thing that really kind of jumped out to me. Like, man, if he could show a little bit more of that and maybe a little bit more breakaway type ability, he's a guy that I would have higher. I think because of that, I don't see just the pure explosiveness. He's just a consistent runner. I think he's a guy who maybe goes, at some point day 3 and maybe even late day 3, but would be a terrific value pick. A guy that I have at my RB5 spot is a guy that you have at your RB1 spot, and that's Kenneth Walker. All right. One thing about Kenneth Walker, and I like this game, but I thought he was an extremely good downhill runner. He runs downhill very well. I see some of the explosive ability kind of from a start-stop standpoint, kind of reading his holes. I thought he was a little inconsistent with that for some of the games I've seen so far. A little bit too much just running straight into guys, and I think that's how he just wants to win. And sometimes it's hard to know, how are the team coaching it up? Are they telling him, hey, just put your foot in the ground and get north right now? If so, then he's doing exactly what they want him to do. But from what I've seen so far, I just see a little bit, the vision has to improve, and I'm not sure that there's enough explosiveness with that vision. Now, if you look at his numbers, you're like, Croc, what are you talking about? He had over 1,600 yards, over 6 yards per carry, and 18 touchdowns. He was tremendous. I thought he lacked a little bit in the passing game. He's a guy that has 19 career receptions. All right, in the NFL, they're going to want him because of the physicality that he can bring and his body type. 5'10", 210 pounds right now. We'll see what he measures in at the combine, but I think there can be a little bit more explosiveness from what I see on film, a little bit more dynamicness, a little bit more ability to kind of make guys miss. I've seen some explosive plays, but to me, it seems more of, everything was just blocked up terrific, as opposed to maybe him making guys miss and being able to run away from defenders like some of the other guys. So between him and Brian Robinson, I'm probably going to be back and forth a little bit throughout this offseason process, but he was a guy that I said, you know what, you don't win awards and do those type of things and not have big time ability. So I couldn't drop him any lower than 5, but I feel comfortable with having him there at the moment.
Yeah, and that's why you got to watch film. You can't just look at the box score. It's not how many yards he gained. It's how he gained them. And then that's what it comes down to. I tell you
real
this.
quick, there was a run against Alabama. I mean, not Alabama, excuse me. There was a run against like Michigan where he just ran straight into the back of everybody, straight into the line. And he's like, oh, well, I can't go anywhere. Let me see if I can bounce outside. And he bounced outside and just nobody there. And he ran off for like a 40-yard touchdown. Like that to me is like, we call that bad money where, there was you corrected a mistake, but it's just like, did you do it? There were other plays where he was like trying to put his foot in the ground and then get west right now to potentially turn that corner and get upfield and just get ran down by David Ojabo. And I know he's potentially a top 10, top 15 pick, Ojabo, and he's a terrific defensive end, but they were both at a standstill. And you saw Walker try to beat him to the outside, and Ojabo he just ran him down and snatched him up like, he's like the slowest thing ever. So again, I don't think he's that slow. Obviously, I think he has some explosive ability, but I would like to see a little bit more dynamic.
I think the one thing this exercise today has shown us is we definitely have styles of what we look for in this position.
All right. And we're going to continue to find those styles. All right. Tomorrow, on the next episode, we are going to have our guy John Harris on, but we'll get back into our top 5 on Friday's episode. I believe. Is it Friday's episode? Or what is that? Anyway, we'll get back into our top 5 and then it'll be tight ends. And I can't wait to dive into that class. There's a few guys. I think this is kind of an underrated class a little bit. Who's that dynamic receiving tight end? We're going to get into all that and more. We're just getting started, kind of getting our feelers out there, seeing who we like, where we have them ranked. Make sure you guys keep it locked right here. I'm Eric Crocker at Eric_Crocker on Twitter. If you disagree, if you hate my list, let me hear about it. At me, follow me on Twitter, all that good stuff. Also, Ryan Tracy at Ryan Tracy NFL. If you hate his list and the fact that he does not have James Cook on there, go at him and tell him how horrible he is, or leave a review on iTunes.
If you hate it, at Eric Crocker. That's what you can do.
All right. But that's going to do it for this episode of the Locked On NFL Draft Show. We thank you for making us your first listen. Of course, after you listen to this, listen to Locked On 49ers, listen to Locked On Chiefs, and we will get back with y'all tomorrow. Appreciate y'all. Peace.